What's going on, everybody? It is your boy Zamboni. I'm a musician and astrologer, and it is time to talk about the astrology of the week ahead. As always, I thank all y'all for being here every week. Every week you show up and listen to me ramble about this bullshit. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sending me a tip via Venmo, Cash App, PayPal. That continues to be super helpful to me. If you want to go to Patreon, you can get an electional report, which can help you to time your life and launches and dates and all types of things like that. You can go to Spotify, Tidal, Pandora, and listen to Can't Help Myself. You can listen to Breathe. I'm super, super proud of that music. I would love it if you would do that. And if you want to get an astrology reading, I do those also. I do 10-minute astrology readings where you can just get this kind of vibe. And I'll just talk about your chart instead of all of what's the transits that are going on right now. There's a bunch of other stuff. Go to ZamboniFunk.com. Thank you so much for being here. Let's talk about the astrology of the week ahead. So this week, the major shift that I'm looking at this week is Mercury into Taurus. So Mercury has been in Aries for a little while. And as Mercury moves into Taurus, then we're going to see some major things. So the first thing, remember how we've got, I just did a podcast on homebody with Mary Grace, who wanted me to do an April forecast with her. So you can check out this whole situation more in depth there. Basically what I said there is sort of like about broad strokes is that, so we've got Pluto having moved into Aquarius, we've got Saturn having moved into Pisces. And so now, basically what we're looking at in April is like testing those planets out. So we're gonna be looking at as soon as Mercury moves into Taurus, then we're going to get an immediate square to Pluto in Aquarius. And then after that, then there's going to be a sextile to Saturn in Pisces. And every planet that goes into Taurus is going to make those aspects. And then also, as we get planets moving into Gemini, so next week, Venus is going to move into Gemini, then that's going to be a square to Saturn and a trine to Pluto in Aquarius, right? And so what we're doing here is sort of just testing out these outer planets have shifted. And so what does it mean that they have shifted in that kind of way, right? And so we're going to get the first one of those here this week. We're going to get Mercury moving into Taurus now, right? So as Mercury moves into Taurus, so Mercury in this first bit of Taurus, this is very this is a planning Mercury, right? This is a Mercury that wants to, it can be a little stressed sometimes. It can be a little bit like, oh, what happens if I don't make it on time? There's we can think it might be like a little agrarian, right? And there's always like a little bit of stress or anxiety around is it gonna take? Are these seeds gonna take? There's been a lot of talk about climate change and the changing, seasons aren't starting at the same time that they used to, and there's some mismatches as far as some plants are coming out a little early before their pollinators are coming out and this kind of thing. And so we're likely to see that kind of anxiety going on here, especially with such major things going on in Taurus as well, right? We've been seeing big shifts happening in Taurus. Taurus is going to be associated with foundations and it's the fixed earth sign, so it's the stuff that you want to be stable. So we're going to be talking about food and shelter and basic necessities, as well as, I like to think about Taurus as being embodied, right? So there's a touch component here, or something like this, right? All of that sort of stuff has been in flux for a number of years. We've had Saturn in Aquarius square to Uranus in Taurus for mad long, and that through what even am currency at this point and this sort of stuff, right? And then now, so Mercury is going to move into Taurus and have this little bit of anxiety about planning and the future and this kind of thing, especially when we think about the future being represented by Pluto in Aquarius, right? So Mercury, the first thing that Mercury is going to do is make that square to Pluto in Aquarius. Pluto in Aquarius having to do with the future dynamic, right? The future is now. We have arrived. Welcome to it. I know you thought it was going to look like the Jetsons. It looks more like this. It's a little steampunky. It's a little we're in this moment where, and so if it's Mercury, right, then it might be something communicative or some kind of exchange of words, ideas, values in Taurus, this kind of thing, right? So if we're looking at that kind of thing, then it might be some kind of interaction with robots, or AI is likely to come up and this kind of thing, and sort of navigating how value is generated in this new world that we live in the future, with these future dynamics going on here. So we're likely to see some kind of interface with that. That Mercury is going to make a nice sextile to Saturn there in Pisces, as well as being present with the ruler of Taurus, which is Venus. So Venus is here in Taurus as well, and Venus is actually going to make a sextile to Neptune this week. Those two planets in Taurus making a sextile to those two planets in Pisces. This looks very creative. It looks really good for, I always talk about think outside the box, especially when we've got Taurus involved because Uranus is there, right? But, it's almost like with Saturn here, it's almost like making a new box, right? Like, how can we generate parameters that would best serve how can you make it so that your systems and your ways of engaging with things can in fact generate value? It's not that like value doesn't exist anymore, right? Like even if robots come and want to like take your job or something like that, right? That doesn't rob you of your value, especially the values that are like inherent to your being, your body, like the Taurus stuff, right? Like it doesn't rob you of your value or the need to exchange value with other people who have value, but rather it changes the game. It changes the rules of the game. The way that we operate in that context sort of is changed up in some kind of way. And so especially with Venus here, like this looks artsy. It looks like a real good time to, and I often think about arts as like being on the vanguard in some kind of way, because like artists don't care to follow the rules a lot of the time, music is my primary art, right? And so I learned a bunch of music theory so that I could stop paying attention to the music theory, right? You have to learn the rules in order to break them, in order to disregard them, right? And so there's that kind of, like, I can still make cool music even by doing things that like are not, you don't have to use notes that are diatonic and this kind of thing, right? Like you can do stuff that is, you can make your own rules. And I feel like that is part of what's going to be going on here with this Taurus stuff sextile to the Pisces stuff. We've also got a big full moon here this week. We've got a full moon in Libra. This looks like a fun one, honestly. It looks like a party moon or something like this. I think that it looks, it's opposite to Jupiter. Jupiter, by the way, is like well under the beams this week. So like we've got Jupiter in Aries, and Jupiter is the planet of joy, luck, abundance. Jupiter wants to expand things and all this sort of stuff, right? But under the beams of the sun, you can't see that planet anymore, and so it's kind of like not able to do its thing properly. It does look like it wants to feed the sun, and so and the sun is super strong in Aries. Even with Mars is in Cancer, and that's kind of annoying. Mars is ruling those Aries planets, right? And so that's like there's something maybe temperamental about that, or moody, or this kind of thing. But all the same, this full moon in Libra, which is opposite to the sun and Jupiter in Aries, it looks like a party. It looks like fun times especially, it looks sort of exuberant or boisterous or something like this. And then that moon in Libra ruled by Venus and Taurus, and Venus and Taurus is like hitting this sextile to Neptune. It looks like it's not really reined in, and it looks like there's a kind of, maybe the future is terrifying, but also there's so much possibility in it. There's so much like, if there's something like you can do it yourself a little bit, right? Like if robots are coming to take over everything, which maybe they are, then you can still chat with GPT, for example, and learn something and get something very valuable out of that, and take that and then multiply your own ability to do the things that you want to do, to make the art that you like. A friend of mine was just talking to GPT recently and had an idea for a story but couldn't figure out what the backstory was, and GPT gave him a few ideas around how that could work, and he was like, oh, and it like really like blew his head up a little bit. So you might have that kind of thing. The possibilities are literally endless at this point. So gonna be fun. I'm out of time here. If you want to hear more about it, check out the Homebody Pod.